Hello there, my name's Dan and here you are in my polytunnels. So I've been doing a bit of work in here, getting it organised, got things nicely laid out now so I can work much better and much more efficiently in here. Permaculture, things such as grapes, peaches, nectarines, oranges, and also here I have a fig plant. Got some banana plants in here as well, and also some other exotic plants down here which I'm waiting to harvest some of them. Many of them are still ripening, so got plenty to show you here, and hopefully you can learn something from the reorganisation of my polytunnel. So behind me here you can see three trees. So this here is a peach tree, in the middle is a blood orange tree, and here is a nectarine tree. Many of you may remember that this blood orange tree has been planted in the ground since around February, March time. It's doing very well. The peach tree here and the nectarine tree there, I planted them in the ground a couple of days ago. So fruit trees in general like a well-draining, fertile, sandy, loamy soil, which is exactly what I've got here. Many of you have seen how well fruit does here. So hopefully these will do very well in the ground. So all three of these trees I was previously growing in about 30 litre containers, something like that. The peach and the nectarine tree were in the opposite corners of the polytunnel there. I grew them in the pot sunk in the ground, so they were putting their roots down through the pot into the ground to obtain additional nutrients and water, but now they're in the ground they should do very well indeed. So sometimes I get asked the question, why do I grow peach trees and nectarines under cover in a polytunnel? The reason for that is to avoid peach leaf curl, which is a fungal disease which is quite often very damaging to the tree. You really want to avoid it, and the way that I avoid it is by protecting the tree from winter rainfall. In the case of in here, protected from rainfall year round. So I'll link a video down below of my other peach tree, variety Dixie Red, and you can see just how heavy cropping that is, and this does very well in my other polytunnel, which is that direction. Now down here you could see some mulch that I've made. So some of you may remember a hotbed video I put up about 3 or 4 months ago. I'll link that down below. I made some mulch, compost, etc. in the form of a hotbed to give exotic plants additional warmth at a potentially cooler time of year. I used grass, which is a green, a nitrogen source, and leaves, which are brown, a carbon source, and I mixed them together in a ton bag, and this is the result. So one wouldn't really want to call this compost yet, but it certainly acts as a mulch. So what this will do is this will go into the ground over winter. The worms will help take that in. It will enrich the soil, the area around these plants, and basically give them more nutrients. So they should do incredibly well here. So looking at my polytunnel from the other end, you can certainly see this one here, this grapevine here. This is variety Riesling, which is a German variety of grape, commonly used for making wine, although you can eat them fresh. And over here I have a grapevine. This is variety Ria, which is originally from Slovakia. It's a big dessert grape, nice size, very interesting variety indeed. So I've got them trained up the sides, the supports of the polytunnel, if you will. So we'll take a closer look and I'll explain a little bit more about how I'm growing these. So this Riesling grapevine, you can see, is planted into the ground in the polytunnel itself. So commonly when grapes are grown in a greenhouse or a polytunnel, the root is planted outside, then the vine is trained in. But I like to grow mine actually in the polytunnel itself. So my reasoning for this is I want the root structure itself to be warm, because I want the growth to be as quick as possible for the plant to get grapes as quick as possible. So you may wish to grow them the traditional way, if you will, or this way. Do your own research as to which you think is the best for you. But with regards to grapevines, some think that they benefit from having cooler roots, and also it can be easier to keep them watered if the root is planted outside. But I certainly like this. So grapevines, they produce fruit off of canes which grow from the previous year's growth. So this piece here is a piece of last year's growth, and this cane here has come off, and on that cane is a little bunch of Riesling grapes. So to demonstrate this more closely, this here is the rootstock which the vine has been grafted to, and this is a piece of last year's growth. Comes up here, and this is the cane which has grown this year. So this year's off of last year's growth, and there is the bunch of grapes. You can see I've removed many of the leaves surrounding it so that the sun can hit the grapes and proceed to ripen them and make them nice and sweet. I'll take the camera around so you can see what I've done. Now you can see the root there, the rootstock, and then the vine. I proceeded to thread it, if you will, through the supports of the polytunnel. So some of it will have supported itself because they put out little ties, if you will, so they can tie themselves to surrounding structures in order to climb. So you can see in the case of here, I've put it behind. Now it might be wiser actually to tie it on the outside so that, because this could get quite big and expand and potentially cause a bit of damage. So you want to make sure you think about what you're going to be doing. So you can see what I've got up here. It literally just goes up the supports of the polytunnel across there. Some of these leaves here have suffered a bit on the way through, but the actual stem itself should be okay. So should be able to get some good grapes off of that next year. And down here, the rear grape, I have done basically the same with, and once again expecting some good fruit off of that next year. With regards to growing grapes in a greenhouse or a polytunnel, to me there are two main benefits. One of those is the fact the extra heat can act as a catalyst, thus making the vine grow quicker, so you can get your grape crops quicker. And also another reason for it is it can allow you to grow additional varieties. For example, Riesling, if you're going to grow it in the UK or a similar climate, it's recommended you grow it under cover. If you're living in a more northerly location, you may wish to grow grapes under cover in a greenhouse or a polytunnel. Here in the southeast, we can grow many varieties of grapes outside and they ripen no problem. So I've got different varieties of grapes outside. I'll be making a video soon, hopefully, showing you how they are getting on. You can see here I have some Ford Hook giant chard plants. So these ones here I initially planted on the 14th of July, and these ones here, they went in on the 2nd of July. So I initially planted them in cell trays such as these, a multi-purpose compost. Then I left them and transplanted them out yesterday, which was the 27th of August. So one great thing about a polytunnel is you can use it for permaculture, so things like grapes, and you can also use them for seasonal plants such as chard here. So what will happen with these is these will put on some growth now, and many of you may have worked out already that the days they are shortening. The autumn is on the way, and thus so is the winter. But there we are. So what we need to do is get plants like these a good size before the days get really short and before it gets really cold, and then that way you've got plenty of pickings to eat throughout the winter. So what you want to do is get them in now like this, and then leave them until around November before you start picking them, because the growth will be much slower by then. So get them a good size, and I think you'll be glad you did it when you can come out in January, February time and pick some nice big chard leaves. So same idea really. So here I have some bacana, which is a Chinese salad cabbage, and here, now these look a bit pathetic, because what happened was I planted them on the 4th of July in cell trays like I did the chard, and when they got a bit bigger, the cabbage white butterflies came in here, laid eggs all over them, and then the caterpillars absolutely decimated them. But the roots are still very good, and these should recover. In a way, it could be an advantage, at least that's what I'm trying to convince myself of, because Oriental greens, they tend to bolt when they are subjected to warmer temperatures and longer days. So hopefully by the time these are mature plants, which is when the problem can occur, it will be much later on. The temperature will be cooler and the days will be shorter, so the bolting won't happen. So anyway, we need to stay tuned and see how these do. These are Santo Yellow Pak Choy. Also here I have some Durham early cabbage. Now this is a good one because that crops around April time. I'm hoping if we get a nice early spring that I'll get them a bit quicker here in the polytunnel. Very interesting. They heart up a bit like a greyhound cabbage, and they're quite an old variety, and you can see I've got about 4 in each pot here. These are about 20, probably 25-30 litre containers. So I've got several in them because if a slug ends up eating 1 or 2 plants, I've still got another one. So basically this is a good way of sort of giving myself a higher chance of getting a good crop. So over here I've got my little propagation set up, got some more plants that need to go in. I've grown these all in the cell trays there. I've put my compost out already for my next batch of sowing. So generally I wouldn't recommend that other people do this because you don't really want your compost sitting about too much in case mites etc end up getting in there, then they can eat your resulting seedlings. So in an ideal world it's good to keep your compost sealed until you actually end up using it, but I've done this simply because I was making the use of available time really, which is the thing I really have to make sure that I look into when I'm gardening. Many of you probably do as well, but ready for my next batch of sowing, which should be occurring within the next week or so. Some of you may have noticed the mulch on the top here. So this is from the ton bag hotbeds I made 3 or 4 months ago once again, and great thing about a polytunnel is you can use it to create compost whilst you're waiting, and the extra heat once again may have acted as a catalyst, thus making this compost quicker than if I've been making it outside. So these plants here, they're planted, some of them will be into the actual mulch itself, some into the mulch and a bit into the ground underneath. So once again this falls very much into the time management category of gardening, and I'll just try to show you what sort of, here you go, you can see the sort of compost that I've managed to make in 3 or 4 months of basically very, very minimal effort. You may have noticed a few roots in there. That would have been what was coming out the bottoms of the pots that I put on top of the hotbed for the extra warmth, but that's no problem at all. But build your soil, work on it over time, and your plants will thank you for it. So I've got all sorts of exotic plants growing here. Aubergines, Okra, and, oh, what's this? This is a pepper. What variety is this? Might be mini red or I think it's mini red, but try and pick that off. That's it. So, I'll show you. That's a pepper I've just picked, and that's a piece of okra. So, yeah, nice. Could have been left on a bit longer. Yeah, good. So anyway, we've got some ginger here. This has grown from, I managed to break that little bit there, which is a bit of a shame, but it should be okay. And this came from Aldi's, the roots, so grown from shop bought ginger. And here I have an avocado at the front, which I grew from a stone, and here at the back is a date palm. Someone else actually grew this and gave it to me. But anyway, absolutely loads I could continue to talk about here in the polytunnel, but the video will be a bit long if I do that. So anyway, comments, questions and whatevers, post them down below in the comments section and I'll try and answer you. But hope you've enjoyed this video, and of course, if you like this video, you can like it, you can share it with anyone you think may be interested, and you can also subscribe if you'd like to be notified of any further videos I put up. Thank you for viewing. Enjoy your weekend.